Welcome to the public meeting of Wednesday, February 18th, 2026 at 4:50 p.m. in council chambers at 3 Kirkland Lake Street West and electronic participation. Item number 1, call to order and a moment of silence. It is 4:50. Item number 2, land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the town of Kirkland Lake is located on traditional and unceded territory of Indigenous peoples. We recognize the presence of Indigenous people in our community since time immemorial and honor their stewardship and care of these lands. We hereby affirm our continued commitment and responsibility to reconciliation. Item number 3, declaration of pecuniary interest. Go ahead, Councilor.
Through you, Your Worship, I, Rick Owen, am declaring deemed pecuniary interest on the agenda for public meeting number 1, dated Wednesday, February 18th, 2026. Agenda item 4.1, agenda title, proposed zoning bylaw amendment, lands north of Goldthorpe Road, Agnico Eagle Mines Limited. It is deemed as the matter may affect my parent, my spouse, or my child. The nature of my interest is as follows. My son, Brian Owen, is an employee at Agnico Eagle Mines Limited.
Thank you, sir. Nothing further from other members. Item number 4, proposed zoning bylaw amendment, lands north of Goldthorpe Road at Agnico Eagle Mines Limited, and this will be presented by Planning Administrator Jenna McNaughton. Thank you, Jenna. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, through Mayor to through the council. We received an application for a zoning amendment from Agnico Eagle Mines Limited to rezone some lands north of Goldthorpe Road from rural to mineral extraction and disposal special exception MEDO2. This is in order to permit the disposal of waste rock and overburden stockpile. A review of the various planning policies were conducted in relation to the proposal, including the provincial planning statement, the growth plan for Northern Ontario, Town of Kirkland Lake's official plan, and the zoning bylaw. I'll just provide a quick overview of each of those. The proposed zoning amendment is consistent with the provincial planning statement as it supports resource-based economic activity, maintains the long-term availability of mineral resources, and facilitates the continued operation of an established mineral mining use. The growth plan for Northern Ontario identifies mining as a key economic driver in Northern Ontario and establishes provincial policy support for the continued development, expansion, and enabling of mineral resource activities. While it does not directly address municipal zoning, its policy direction generally supports land use decisions, including zoning amendments, that facilitate mining development when undertaken in a sustainable and responsible manner. The Town of Kirkland Lake's official plan designates the subject properties as rural, and the official plan establishes clear policy direction that supports resource-based economic activities, including mining and associated operations. The town zoning bylaw, this sets specific regulations as to how land may be used, types of permitted uses on the land, and the required standards for each zone. This subject property right now is zoned as rural, which does not permit the disposal of waste rock or overburden in conjunction with the mining operation. The application proposes to change this to a mineral extraction and disposal, which would permit the mine tailing and disposal as a primary use. With the surrounding properties already being designated as mineral extraction and disposal and mining industrial, aligning the zoning of the subject property with the adjacent land uses will create a more compatible and cohesive land use pattern, reducing potential land use conflicts and supporting the established mining industrial character of the area. A site visit was conducted, and it revealed that there is an access road that crosses Macassa Mine, or from the Macassa Mine property over Goldthorpe Road onto the subject property. Since Goldthorpe Road is a public roadway, additional signage has been installed along Goldthorpe Road to alert on-road and off-road vehicles that heavy equipment is in the area, maybe crossing the road. In speaking with the applicant today, they further updated that they are proposing to install some gates once they're finalized the development of that road crossing, along with some lights and some further enhancements for vehicle safety. Some correspondence that we did receive from Ontario Northland confirmed that there is a rail right-of-way located near the subject property. The letter generally states that there is noise and vibration that is created from the railway, and as a result, the applicant isn't entitled to file complaints or claims against Ontario Northland in relation to the railway's operation being in proximity to the property. Based on all the information that was reviewed, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is consistent with the provincial planning statement. It does not conflict with the growth plan for Northern Ontario and conforms with the town's official plan, as the application is representing good land use planning.
Thank you for that report. Item number 5, confirmation of notice. Madam Clerk, how was notice given?
Madam Mayor, notice of the public meeting was given in accordance with the Town of Kirkland Lakes Notice Bylaw 2557 by publishing said notice on the town's website 4 to 14 days in advance and as of February 2nd, 2026. Supplemental notice was published through the newspaper, the town's social media platforms, the February edition of the municipal update publication, and daily radio broadcasts.
Thank you for that. Item number 6, correspondence received. Madam Clerk, did you receive any further correspondence before this meeting other than what is stated in item 6.1?
No, I did not. The only, Madam Chair, I confirm the correspondence that was received by the clerk's office was from Ontario Northland Transportation Commission, dated February 9th, 2026, and received by the clerk on February 12th, 2026.
Thank you. Item 6.1, Ontario Northland Transportation Commission.
I will read the correspondence as so cited, sent via email to clerk@tkl.ca, February 9th, 2026. The Corporation of the Town of Kirkland Lake, PO Box 1757, 3 Kirkland Street West, Kirkland Lake, Ontario, P2N3P4. Attention, Jennifer Montroy. Dear Jennifer, notice of public meeting, proposed notice amendment, vacant lands, north of Goldthorpe Road, Agnico Eagle Mines Limited. We acknowledge receipt of the notice of zoning amendment application regarding the above referenced application. Ontario Northland Transportation Commission, ONTC, has now had the opportunity to review and has the following comments. ONTC has a rail right-of-way in proximity of the subject property. This letter will serve as notice to the applicant that the operation of the railway will produce noise and vibration. The applicants will not be entitled to make any complaint or claim against ONTC for nuisance or otherwise relating to the operation of the railway in proximity to the subject property. There may be alterations to or expansion of the rail facilities on such right of way in the future, including the possibility that ONTC may expand its operations. Notwithstanding the inclusion of any noise or vibration attenuating measures, ONTC will not be responsible for any complaints or claims arising from operations on, over, or under the rail right of way. Given the proximity of the property to the ONTC mainline, we are requesting that the enclosed guidelines for development in proximity to Ontario Northland Railway operations be considered in any planning application for future development of the property. Yours very truly, Sky Buchanan, Real Estate Law Clerk, telephone 705-472-4500, extension 527, and email skybuchanan@ontarionorthland.ca.
Thank you for that, Madam Clerk. Item number 7, comments and questions from member of the public. Normally, I do call upon members of the public to come to the podium and state their name and address prior to delivering any comments. This evening, there are no members of the public in attendance, so there's nobody here to call upon. Item number 8, proposed direction. Madam Clerk, please read the direction.
That council receive the comments from members of the public, if any, and that council hereby approve an amendment to zoning bylaw number 2132 to rezone lands identified for mining claims L1616, L2380, and part of L1617 from rural RA to mineral extraction and disposal special exception 2, MED02, and find that the amending bylaw be brought forward for 3 readings at an upcoming meeting.
Thank you. This is the direction stemming from this public meeting, and the public meeting is now adjourned. And welcome to the second public meeting of the evening on Wednesday, February 18th, 2026 at 5 o'clock in council chambers, 3 Kirkland Lake Street West, and electronic participation. Call to order is at 5 o'clock on the dot. Item number 2 will not be restated again, as we have acknowledged we are on unceded territory. Item number 3, declaration of pecuniary interest. None noted. Item number 4, summary of reports. 4.1, proposed zoning bylaw amendment, housekeeping, section 7.14.1, and this will also be delivered by Jenna McNaughton, planning administrator. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to council. We were processing a housekeeping amendment for the town zoning bylaw to amend section 7.14.1. This proposal is to provide clarification on the definition of a public use to include First Nations offices and publicly funded daycares as permitted uses. Both uses function as community serving, government related or publicly funded services and are widely understood to fall within the broader category of public use. Adding these uses to the list of permitted public use would clarify the bylaw, ensuring consistency with community needs and support the provision of essential services, including those delivered by First Nations governments and publicly funded childcare providers. I'll just go over some of those planning policies. A full review of this is in that report. So the proposed amendment is consistent with the provincial planning statement as it promotes meaningful engagement and constructive cooperation between planning authorities and Indigenous communities. The PPS definition of a public service facility includes daycares. In addition, it details goals for planning for people and homes, including achieving a complete community. The inclusion of daycare facilities promotes the complete community. The growth plan for Northern Ontario identifies Aboriginal peoples as one of its 6 core theme areas. Supporting the establishment of First Nations administrative offices within local communities is consistent with the direction of the plan. While the plan does not specifically reference childcare facilities, its broader objectives such as supporting workforce development, population growth, and coordinated community infrastructure are consistent with the provisions of childcare services. The official plan is our guide for local decision makers to guide their physical development of the town towards a more orderly, convenient, and attractive community in which to live, work, and play. The plan focuses on long-term positive economic growth, population stability, and community vitality, and working in collaboration with other agencies to promote a healthy community. The addition of both First Nations offices and publicly funded daycares is a positive step towards strengthening local services and ensuring that essential supports are accessible to all residents. Our zoning bylaw establishes how the land may be used and identifies permitted uses within each zone. Section 7.14 of the bylaw provides general permissions for public uses in any zone. However, the current wording does not explicitly identify First Nations administrative offices and publicly funded child care centers as a permitted use. Therefore, we're proposing to add this to provide clarification that they would be permitted. As such, that the request to permit the additional uses is consistent with the provincial planning statement. It doesn't conflict with the growth plan for Northern Ontario and conforms with the official plan. The application is representing a good land use planning.
Thank you for that report. Item number 5, confirmation of notice. Madam Clerk, how was notice given?
Madam Chair, notice of the public meeting was given in accordance with the Town of Kirkland Lakes Notice Bylaw 2557 by publishing said notice on the town's website more than 14 days in advance, and as of February 2nd, 2026. Supplemental notice was published through the newspaper, the town's social media platforms, and daily radio broadcasts.
Thank you for that. Item number 6, correspondence received. Were there any items of correspondence received before this meeting?
Madam Chair, I confirm that no correspondence was received from the office of the clerk.
Thank you. Item number 7, comments or questions from members of the public. Again, during this time, I would normally call members of the public up to the podium and to state their name and address for the record. However, there are no members of the public in attendance for this evening. Item number 8, proposed direction. Madam Clerk, please read the direction.
Certainly, that council received the comments from members of the public, if any, and that council hereby approve an amendment to zoning bylaw number 2132 to permit additional uses under section 714.1 general provisions, public uses in any area, including First Nations offices and publicly funded daycares. And finally, that the amending bylaw be brought forward for 3 readings at an upcoming meeting.
Thank you. This will be the direction coming out of the public meeting, and the meeting is adjourned at 5. Thank you. Thank you. And now, welcome to the regular council meeting of Wednesday, February 18th, 2026 at 5:05 PM in council chambers at 3 Kirkland Street West, and electronic participation. The call to order is at 5:05. I will not again be stating the acknowledgement, as we have done that in previous meetings this evening. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda, moved by Council Janice Ranger, seconded by Councillor Lad Shaba.
Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of council held on Wednesday, February 18th, 2026, be approved as amended to remove item 8.7, parking restrictions, Kirkland Street West, at the request of the chief administrative officer.
Thank you. All in favor? Oh, no, sorry. So we are going to have a recorded vote at this time. Madam Clerk, just get your sheets together.
Yes, I apologize.
No.
Procedural recorded vote is required for this meeting. Councillor Dolly Dykens. Yes. Councillor Patrick Kiley is absent. Councillor Rick Owen.
Yay.
Councillor Casey Owens.
Yes.
Councillor Janice Ranger.
Yay.
Councillor Lad Shaba.
Yay.
Mayor Stacy White.
Yay.
The motion is carried.
Thank you. Item number 4, declaration of pecuniary interest. None noted. Item number 5, civic petitions. There are none this evening. Item number 6 is delegation and presentations, and we will now finally welcome our MP, Etat Millet. Thank you, sir, for joining us this evening and your patience while you witnessed our public meetings. So thank you very much.
Well, I have to say it's run very efficiently. Thank you, Madam Mayor, councillors, CAO. Etat Millet, Member of Parliament, and thank you for having me here. I've been 10 months on the job now, and starting to learn that it's very complex. But rather than explain what everyone knows, I think I'm here really to listen to your concerns and to what's important to Kirkland Lake. Other than saying I've been, like I said, been 10 months at it, I'm involved with the Natural Resource Committee. Therefore, concentrate a lot of my work and efforts on mining and forestry. I mean, those are, and agriculture, I mean, is becoming extremely important in this region. But I think it would be more valuable for me to listen to you and hear to some of the needs of Kirkland Lake and some of your questions.
Thank you and welcome. We do appreciate your time. Your predecessor has joined us in person as well, and I think it's a great opportunity for you, even though you are at the federal level, to come and represent our district at our table. So we do appreciate your presence. As we stated before, we have passed a few motions for your table, including one by Councillor Shaba as well, for reducing the HST on.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So I do want to just let you know that I have been watching you, and you have been a strong voice for resource extraction in our communities, and we do appreciate that. Anything further from members of council? Councillor Shaba.
To you, Madam Chair, to the MP. Good afternoon and welcome to our Kirkland. I have, if the chair will allow me, I have 4 items to just put on the table, and I don't need all the answers tonight. Before I pivot to them, I'd like to say that you are my second member of parliament that happens to be conservative. So I've been around for a long time. I won't tell you how long, but the first was John McDougall, the reason why from Englehart, conservative member of our parliament. The writing wasn't as big as it is now. And McDougall brought us Veterans Affairs. So no pressure, so. People don't realize that we got that too, people that have been around like me and maybe Ray.
Yeah, well, tonight,
We got that, so no pressure, but
well,
they're gonna let that, you know.
tonight I'm the member of parliament for everyone.
Okay. However, after John Dougal, we had Ben Seri, and then we have Charlie Angus, we have you. My first question to you is that all these people, they do have a constituency office here in Kirkland Lake. So, I think we're the second largest, I was told, and maybe I'm wrong, we're the second largest town after Timmins, maybe I'm wrong. But nevertheless, for all of this time, we have a constituency office. So I know you 10 months into this job, you don't really have to answer this. I don't want to put you on the spot, but we don't have one right now. And again, there are a lot of services that people need from constituency office, as you know. I work with the constituency office over the years, you you name it, CPPO, AS, immigration. They do take part in that, but we haven't got one. My second, can I?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. This is just something I'd like you to work on. I know your party is not in government, but I'm sure that we'll try to work together for the benefit of all Canadians. Doesn't matter. At this table, we don't care about political stripe. Wherever we get the money, we take it and run. And that's it. So there are a lot of things that I think is worthwhile to put your weight behind. One of them is the Build Canada Homes initiatives, because at this table, we've been talking about affordability, homes, and of course, you're from Timmins, the problem of affordability and the lack of homes, whatnot. So this is what the government has, I believe, has on their radar. So I'm hoping that you will be fighting hard to at least get something for us in the north here. Because I read that many times. I said, well, how is it going to benefit my area? When I look at this in policy, you read the policy, okay, you have to really dissect it and say, well, how would this benefit? I'm a local politician. So this is where you come in to at least bring all of that to us. I mean, not Kirkland Lake alone, but the area that you represent. Mind you, I know you have a very large riding to care for. Number 3 is another part of the policy is mental health and drugs. Mental health is very, very important. I listened to Northeast Public Health Unit at one of FANAM. They have all the statistics about people in our area that are, the drug addiction, you name it, mental health issues and whatnot. These are our young people. These are the future. We need to put assets into that to help everybody. So I want you to maybe work hard to throw your weight behind that when the time comes. This one here has been bounced around. The mayor probably attest to it. All the meetings that we've been to with FANAM, bill reform. This is the way it is now is a joke. It's a revolving policy. You guys have an opportunity to push the government to at least have a very substantive bill reform. Someone commits crime and then they're locked up for a few days and they're back out and then they commit crime again. So we're not getting anywhere with that. I know that came out for now and all of that. We don't know where it is. So the last one to me is, as you know, we're anticipating the start of the bus service in our area. Start from Timmins, nice building going up in Timmins in Porcupine. I was on that commission years back when we folded that, canceled the bus, the passenger bus, the train, not the bus, the train, sorry, train. Yeah, I was going to take the bus last week, so it's still on my head. I said, I'm going to take the Terra-Northbound bus to Latchford for the sake of it anyways. Train service, right? It's coming back. And we're very excited that it's coming back. When I sat on that commission way back with Mr. Plude, he was with me, I was the chair of finance. We had ridership problems. We have all kinds of problems. I know it's a provincial matter, but I read a lot about federal government helping other communities. I mean, take Toronto, for example, the LRT to the Finch, the Metro Links just transferred to GTC. A lot of money, of federal government money went into that. Or otherwise, the old transport, federal government money went into that. Back when I was on this commission, we get subsidy from federal government to help that train service. So this is where you come in to make sure that at least, yes, it's a provincial matter, but the federal government will come in and try to help so that we don't run into the same problem that we had before when the passenger train was canceled. I know it's up to us to take it. You know, I'm telling you, with all these accidents that we have on our roads, transport, I mean, I need not to tell you, you're northerner for life, you know. People will jump at the chance of taking that train to anywhere just to stay off the road. So hopefully you can put your weight behind that. So,
Absolutely.
so that's all I have for you this afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I don't know if you have ability to respond to any of those matters today on what you're working with currently.
Maybe we can go through all the questions first.
Yeah, absolutely. Counselor Owen?
Yes, through you, your worship. First off, I want to thank you for coming here in person. I was gonna say I'm old, but I decided I better say I'm old school. And I like face-to-face interaction as opposed to Zoom. Now, having said that, Zoom has its place, but I do appreciate the fact that you took the time and the energy to come physically to this meeting. Our previous MP was often criticized for paying far too much attention to the north end of the riding. I mean, the riding is being reconfigured, and not enough attention to the communities in the southern end of the riding. And now the riding's being reconfigured, we're right at the bottom of the riding. And that causes me concern that we may be left out. And I just want to remind you, we are here, we are vibrant, we are growing, and we deserve as much as any other community.
Left out by the government or left out by a member from?
Left out by the government.
You will not be.
Like,
I've been here many times.
yeah,
Maybe the first time here, and I was invited on Zoom, and we decided that I'd rather be here in person also. No, and I've already done some work in the background for Kirkland Lake finger joint.
Yeah.
And confidential, but no, I've been here many times, and it's very easy to be here.
so that's good to hear, because like I say, in the past, I often felt that we were kind of second fiddle to some other issues. Now, recently, I had to take my daughter to Timmins to the fracture clinic. And that was the day with the blowing snow and the highway was closed. And I had the worst travel that I've had in my 42 years in Northern Ontario. I was behind a truck, which I believe it was a flatbed loaded with lumber in white wrapping.
In white snow.
In white snow. So you literally totally lost sight of it. It just disappeared, which throws your whole perspective off. And then the top of the truck would reappear against the skyline. Anyways, it was terribly frightening for me. Now, this was medically necessary travel. It's not like we had a choice. Through my membership on the Temiskaming Municipal Association, it was brought up that the federal government's responsible for 50% of the funding for the Trans-Canada Highway. So I would like you to, it's just personal, I'm not speaking on behalf of the rest of council, to go back to Ottawa and lobby for us to make sure the federal government's putting their 50% in. I mean, we've been waiting for the 2+1 for how many years? At least 8 years. We've seen one passing lane added north of Kenogami in recent years, but the situation isn't getting any better. And it hits close to home for me because, two of my grandchildren were involved in an accident where the driver of the other vehicle was killed north of North Bay. And again, it was snow, it was bad road conditions. As a reporter, I used to listen, now it's provincial, but forget that, but the quality of the highway doesn't seem to be a priority, and I have a hard time believing the federal government's meeting its 50%. So if you could look into that,
Well,
I would greatly appreciate it.
not that I will look into it, I've been looking into it.
Yeah.
I will be coming back to you, Mayor, in about 4 weeks from now. I'm working on a project. I agree 100% with what you say. I travel the same highways. It's unacceptable on the corridor from North Bay to about Nipigon. In 6 months, there's been 21 people killed. It's a tragedy. I'm working with some, I will come back in 4 weeks from now. This is a promise. You will hear from me and I will need your help. I'm starting to work on a petition to work on the Trans-Canada project across the country. I will be back to you on this. I realize how important it is.
Thank you for
If
that.
I may,
I
one
will
more.
be back.
Follow up?
And I just want to give you fair warning
Yes.
that our mayor is very hardworking and she will not lose your number. So
I will be back to
she
you.
is a very strong
Maybe,
advocate for Kirkland Lake and for the area. And she has definitely raised our profile, especially with politicians. So I'm just giving you a fair warning, expect lots of contact.
Good.
Anything further from members of council that would like to take this opportunity? Okay,
Maybe some of the questions will have to come back. You know what, my way to approach things is to be transparent. So 2 ridings have been amalgamated. A few pieces have been knocked off, but not that much. It's it's the riding we've been given and it's I can manage it now. The budget has not changed. All right, and there's not enough money for a second office. And if there was, where does it go? There's not enough money. Does it go in Kirkland Lake? Does it go in Kapuskasing? Does it go in Hearst? I've applied, I went back to government and said, I need 3 offices in the riding. And I went up and you gotta go there, you gotta go there, you gotta go there, and in the end it said, here's a budget, and that's it. What we're doing, we're looking at having clinics. Some of the people working with me worked with, have a lot of experience and worked with previous members of parliament. And what I'm told is that things have changed a lot. There are now government offices. I would think Kirkland Lake has a federal government office.
Yeah.
And a lot of things member of parliament would do now, it's the federal government officers who are doing it. And there's a lot of work being done on, every day we go through about 100 emails, phone calls. And if we have to go meet with people, we will. But there's not enough money at the second office. You know what, I should have one in Moosonee, I should have one around Cathurst, I should have one here, and I should have one in Sheffield. It's, this riding is very interestingly, I was on a committee with a member from the Maritimes. And he was talking about his riding and then at a certain point he says, well, how big's your riding? And I said, well, it's fairly big. So he takes his phone and he goes, oh my God, it's twice the size of all the Maritimes. Twice the size. So every one of those has basically the same budget. So they do have office. So I mean, I want to be frank, it's but you know what, with the way the world is changing, I prefer to be in person. But when the tools of Zoom and all these tools are used properly, they are very effective and very practical.
thank you. Councillor Dykens.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, MP. I guess my concern is access. And when we had previous MPs and they did have offices here, access was, even if you didn't need it, you knew where it was. So I guess it's a time to be creative too. Right? So if there's a way that it can be up front and out there that people know how to connect.
I don't disagree with you, and I agree that we have to be creative, absolutely.
Thank you for that. Do you have anything, any further statements to
Well,
share?
on the others, the Bill Canada Homes, I agree, and there are programs there, I ask questions, if there's, sometimes if you have a request, that you get back to me and, you send it through the proper channels, but also I work very closely with my colleagues, it's like, we're there for the better of the country, so I work very closely with them. And sometimes I can go and, ask questions, where is this application? We're allowed to do that, Mental health and drugs, it's terrible. In the catch and release, there's so much work to be. I meet regularly with first responders, and, Ontario Provincial Police, and there's a lot of work to be done. So, a lot of work to be done.
Absolutely. Anything further from, for our MP? I just want to sincerely thank you for coming, and we hope that we see you again. Our term is coming to a close, but in previous years, we have welcomed our representatives to this table to bring news of their triumphs and their challenges as well. Like you said, you've been on the job for 10 months and you're now discovering the true challenges of the job, I'm sure. So definitely we do appreciate that you took this time to come see us, and I'm sure our community and the community members you serve federally that live in our riding, that is all give or take 8,000 people in Kirkland Lake. We do appreciate that you came to see us this evening.
And I will be back, and Mayor, I will be talking to you hopefully before the 3 to 4 weeks.
Yes.
On a project that is very important to all of us.
Thank you for that. Moved by Councillor Janice Ranger, seconded by Councillor Lad Chava.
Be it resolved that the delegation entitled Update from MP for Capstacing Timmins, Mushkeg, how do we say it? Can you say it? Thank you. Daytime let be received for information purposes.
Thank
Mayor,
you.
could there be a possibility that we have an in-camera meeting before I go? I don't know how that works.
So unfortunately, because due to the requirements of the Municipal
Okay.
Act,
Okay,
previous notification needs to be given. So we do appreciate your
Alright.
time, and we will meet possibly in 4 weeks then.
thank you.
Thank you
Alright.
so much. All in favor? Opposed? Item carried unanimous. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Moving on, item number 7, approval and acceptance of minutes. Council minutes approved, moved by Councillor Janice Ranger, seconded by Councillor Casey Owens.
Be it resolved that council approves the minutes of the following meetings: minutes of the public meeting of council held February 3rd, 2026, minutes of the regular meeting of council held February 3rd, 2026, and minutes of the special meeting of council held February 10th, 2026.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Committees of council minutes moved by Councillor Rick Owens, seconded by Councillor Casey Owens.
Be it resolved that council adopt the minutes of the following meetings: minutes of the Kirkland Lake Planning Advisory Committee held April 17th, 2025, and June 26th, 2025.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Local and regional board minutes moved by Councillor Janice Ranger, seconded by Councillor Rick Owen.
Be it resolved that council received the minutes of the following meetings: minutes of the District of Timiskaming Social Services Administration Board of Directors held December 17th, 2025, and minutes of the Northeastern Public Health Board of Health held November 27th, 2025, and January 12th, 2026.
All in favor? Opposed? Item carried unanimous. Item number 8, reports for municipal officers and staff. 8.1, Tech Pioneer Residents Operational Review. This will be delivered by CAO Alan Smith and Sarah Carbone, Senior Manager, Industries and Government Practice, Optimus SBR Inc., and Amanda Luliano, Associate Industries and Government Practice, Optimus SBR, moved by Councillor Janice Ranger, seconded by Councillor Casey Owen.
It resolved that report number 2026 CAO 005 entitled Tech Pioneer Residence Operational Review be received for information, and 5, that council direct administration to investigate the recommendation to stabilize Tech Pioneer residents as noted in the operational review as presented, and provide a supplemental report on the implementation of the noted recommendations.
Thank you. And we are also joined by Lloyd Crawford, Treasurer, and Tanya Schumacher, Director of our LTC and Senior Care Services. Thank you. So who will be proceeding?
I'll start.
Okay.
And we'll hand it off. Thank you.
Okay.
To Madam Mayor, to members of council, resulting from operational and financial pressures, Optimus SBR was retained to complete an operational review of TPR. After an extensive review of TPR's operations, there are several recommendations to stabilize current operations involving financial performance, structure and operations, HR staffing, and culture. The operational review also provides long-term recommendations for TPR. Tonight, we have representatives from Optimus SBR who will provide a detailed overview of their findings, including discussions on the recommendations I just mentioned, and they will also take any questions. So I'd now like to just hand it off to Optimus SBR.
Thank you.
But I don't see Sarah.
Sarah is, so we know she is, won't be attending. It's, just happened.
My camera is not letting me on. My name's Lindsay Martin. I will try to get the camera to allow me to, oh, there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for the introduction, and Alan. My name's Lindsay Martin. I am filling in on behalf of Sarah. She unexpectedly had a medical emergency today, so she cannot be here, but I'm also Senior Manager at Optimus and was involved in this project start to finish. So thank you for having us here today. As Madam Mayor mentioned, Armanda, you'll see on the screen there, as well as one of our colleagues, Nikki, who will also participate in the discussion today. I will have Armanda put some slides up on the screen. As Alan mentioned, we'll do a brief overview of the work that we did for Tech Pioneer residents to complete the operational review, providing you just a bit of overview in terms of the current state findings, the recommendations that we proposed, and some discussion as Alan mentioned, and then would be happy to take any questions from the group. So we'll probably spend about 20 minutes and then open for questions. So as I mentioned, really want to just give this group an overview of the methodology that we use to complete this review, to give you an overview of those current state findings I mentioned we found as part of our review, as well as some of the areas where we identified improvement for the home. And lastly, to give a overview of the recommendations, both shorter term to stabilize, as well as some longer term considerations for the home. And lastly, would love to hear questions from the group and happy to answer any clarifications or dive into any area of the reports in more detail. So we'll quickly provide an overview here. So as Alan mentioned at the beginning there, the real purpose of this report was to complete a comprehensive review of Tech Pioneer residents and make sure that we were able to give actionable opportunities and recommendations that really focused on effectiveness of the home, financial stability of the home, and also making sure that quality of care for the residents is kind of top of mind and considered throughout all of those recommendations. And this will help TPR plan for the future. We like to define success for a project, so this is what we want to be able to achieve at the end of the work. So again, this was making sure that we had engagement along the way from the leadership at the home. We were able to speak to staff, to leaders. We had the chance to spend some time with the residents as well and some of their families and get their perspectives on the home, which was great to hear their views. We want to be able to give transparent findings and transparent recommendations. We did that through each phase of this work, so we're able to meet with Tanya, Lloyd, and Alan regularly in order to give them updates on progress and where our direction was going. And lastly, make sure that you have a well-informed process and recommendations that was built on leading practices. So you'll see as we go through today, Armando will highlight some of the other homes that we looked at as well to see what they've done to improve their homes, improve their care, and improve their efficiencies. On the next slide here was our timeline. So we started this work in September and we wrapped up our reporting towards the end of December into early January. Here at this meeting today as essentially the close of our work and to answer any final questions. And then it will really be passed over to the town and TPR in order to implement and explore the recommendations. And finally, before I pass it over to Amanda here, as I already highlighted, there were a number of different inputs that went into this work. A large part of what fed into this was deep data and document review, so a lot of analysis in the background in terms of the financials, staffing, how the home operates. I did highlight some of the stakeholder engagement, so we did have the chance to speak with leadership, engage with staff, engage with the residents, engage with their families to make sure that we were getting all the differing perspectives around the home and its performance. We also put out a survey, and this was available again to staff, to leadership, residents and their families as well, and council. So we're able to get some of your perspectives early on in this work. And then lastly, the jurisdictional scan. So looking at some comparable homes in order to understand what challenges they might have experienced and what has worked well for them in their homes. And lastly, you'll see us walk through this framework. It'll guide a lot of our conversation today. These were the core 6 areas that we really looked across when we were assessing TPR. So I'll start in the top left there just to give a quick overview around human resource staffing and culture. So really looking at the people, how the home is structured, the workforce practices, and the culture. So how staff feel within the home was a key pillar there. On the top right-hand side, quality and compliance. So making sure from a systems and standards perspective, there were no quality or compliance issues. Financial performance being the third category and very important from that sustainability perspective and stabilization perspective. So understanding current budgeting and also the longer-term viability and sustainability. Service delivery is another key area. So this really looks at the range of services that the home offers. Resident experience, so wanting to understand how residents view the home, what their quality of life is, what their experience has been in their time in the home. And then lastly, the structure and operations. So this gets into some of the governance bodies that support the home, the leadership structure, and any of the day-to-day processes that support the running of the home. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Amanda. She'll spend about 10 minutes just giving you an overview of some of the current state findings, and then I will come back and give you an overview of our recommendations.
Thanks, Lindsay, and thank you for having us this evening. I'm going to start off the current state findings and our review of that operational review framework, just with a brief overview of TPR, knowing that most of the experts on TPR are here in the room. But TPR is the town's long-term care home with 81 long-term care beds, and it opened in 2003 and provides various different services to its residents, including 24-hour medical services, on-call medical support, a dedicated memory care unit, restorative and physiotherapy services, and a long list of things that really are delivering quality care to its residents. From a operating perspective, the demand is strong for the beds at TPR with recent occupancy rates reaching up to 99%. And the home is a quite sizable operation, having about 78 FTE staff and $9.3 million in revenue in 2024. So with that brief context there, will move into our findings that go through the operational review framework, starting off with financial performance. So this slide here showcases that TPR has been operating in a financial deficit for the last several years. And in 2024, expenses were about 25% higher than its revenue. And there are a few key drivers that are really driving some of these changes, starting with salary, wages, and benefits. And this is mostly driven due to updated collective agreements and increased staffing levels that have been available through ministry funding. Also, vacation, holiday, sick time, and overtime is one of those buckets that we see year-over-year changes. And this is largely driven by sick time and overtime specifically. And finally, costs that are relayed through the hospital, including items like food and heating, which have increased significantly over the last few years. As kind of an overall takeaway message from the financial performance of TPR, generally the deficit is primarily concentrated in a few major areas, which is kind of the focus of our recommendation, specifically in the financial performance section that Lindsay will go through in just a bit. Next, we'll go through the TPR structure and operations. And overall, we found that the design of TPR is generally appropriate for a home of its size and of its functionality. And there are strong elements that are currently in place, like the Committee of Management and the Resident and Family Councils. But at the same time, some of these groups and through some of the engagement that we had throughout the home were described as there being opportunities to strengthen the effectiveness of some of these groups, establishing clear routines, clear accountability, and more consistent information sharing. The other major operational point to point out here is that there are opportunities for increasing the efficiency of the home through the reliance on paper-based processes. So specifically when it comes to the home scheduling, communication, and documentation, there is an opportunity to target some of the inefficiencies and inconsistency by switching to non-paper-based processes. And finally, there is also opportunities to better align and coordinate shared functions with the town of Kirkland Lake, specifically in functions like human resources. And this will enhance operational effectiveness in those functionalities that are present at both the town and as well as TPR. So in general, the structure at TPR is working well. There's just some opportunities to make the current setup a little bit more efficient. Now we'll dive a bit deeper into the HR, staffing, and workforce pressures that are present at TPR, and diving a bit deeper into the sick and overtime, which was mentioned on the financial performance slide. So as you can see by the expenses showcased here in this image, sick time and overtime have grown substantially over the last few years, which does create instability, not only financially, but also operationally when management are needing to cover shifts that might be hard to fill and might be more reactive than proactive. The data shows that nursing roles account for some of the highest levels of overtime and sick leave, and some of that can be aligned with the themes that came out of our engagement, where there's been staffing challenges among some of the clinical roles present at TPR, which is a common issue across the long-term care sector. This slide also highlights that overtime is concentrated in a few departments primarily, and that there might be a small number of high overtime claims that do have an impact on that final figure. And these are some of those things that can be targeted more specifically in order to reduce pressure both on staff, but also on TPR's finances as well. And this last slide here goes through a few of the last domains in our operational framework, starting off with service delivery. Overall, TPR is seeing serving higher need population than the provincial average, which is also supported by some staff sentiment that there's changing sort of demographics and needs of individuals living at the home. However, we do not see this as as a large area of concern throughout our review, as the difference is quite similar. Secondly, resident and family experience, and this is one of the areas that has a very strong overall positive message, where residents and family members reflect a high level of satisfaction and strong relationships with TPR staff. There are a few very minor pieces of feedback that came through in our engagement in regards to food services, laundry, and responses during peak activity times, but all very minor and all outshined by the positive comments for sure. And finally, when we're looking at quality and compliance, there in our review, we did see some inspection activity that included some enforcement actions in 2024. But early results in 2025 show fewer amounts of those enforcement activities, which is encouraging, but it's not fully a clear picture on what has improved or if there's sustained improvement. But it is something that's definitely encouraging and moving in the right direction. Now we'll look a bit at our jurisdictional review, and the purpose of this review is to explore any sort of relevant practices that TPR can learn from when it comes to best practices and kind of sector shifts within the long-term care sector. And we examined 3 northern municipal long-term care homes to understand what is typical across each of these homes. Are there pressures that are shared? Are there approaches that are working in other homes, and et cetera. So this slide here shows a side-by-side snapshot of few of those 3 homes that we did take a look at, both in Muskoka, the district of West Nipissing, and also the Golden Manor in Timmins. So the overall kind of themes across this slide here is that demand is quite strong everywhere. Each of the homes do have a meaningful wait list. That municipal contribution does vary a lot when it comes to contribution to the operation of the home across each of the homes that we did look at, which can be seen on the bottom line there. And also that scale and redevelopment are a little bit of a shifting trend within this cohort of homes. Many of the homes here are either recently redeveloped or in the process of redeveloping. So something that we definitely noted as we engaged with these individuals. And this is a final slide that summarizes and thematically explains what we heard most consistently across the comparator municipalities, some of the common pressures that were faced across each, as well as some of those promising practices that maybe can be brought forward when we're looking at the future of TPR. When it comes to common pressures, it was very evident that financial pressure is felt across each of those homes, with homes relying on municipal support, with homes facing ministry clawbacks, and that it's very risky when those things are very dependent on risky operational things like when occupancy drops or when funding isn't used exactly as planned. All homes are facing significant workforce pressures, recruitment and retention challenges, especially in clinical roles, is challenging across the sector. And some homes are relying on agency staffing in order to kind of combat some of these things. And all homes are facing kind of the navigation of administrative complexity, where there is an opportunity to share services with their municipalities, which can be beneficial, but without the proper organization can lead to some bottlenecks if not set up properly. And finally, when it comes to promising practices, homes across the sector are really leveraging technology and moving toward tools like electronic scheduling and operational systems to reduce some of that inconsistency that can be seen across operations. A lot of homes are turning to things like redevelopment and revenue diversification to expand not only their capacity, but the amount of services that they're offering. And finally, homes are all finding value in negotiating with the ministry to ensure that funding pressures are addressed and avoid some of those avoidable clawbacks. So some of our recommendations will take into consideration some of these things that we learned from the jurisdictional review. And with that, I'll hand it back to Lindsay to walk us through a bit of what we were thinking for the recommendations.
Great, thank you. So on this first slide here, and I won't spend too much time here, it really just summarizes up all of the key themes that Armando just presented. So from that human resource staffing and culture perspective, it is really around how do we manage any of the workforce pressures, and that can tie into some of the recommendations I'll walk you through momentarily when it comes to the staffing pools, as well as some of those processy and technology elements, for example, when it comes to scheduling. This really then ties into some of that sick time and overtime costs and how do we manage some of those increased costs that have happened over time, and making sure that we also have strong communication and kind of culture within the home. From that structures and operations perspective, you'll see as I speak through it momentarily, really good governance structures in place. They meet all the legislative requirements. We do have some small suggestions in terms of how those could potentially be enhanced, and making sure, again, in that secondary piece there on the operations, how do we move towards more of our technology-based solutions, and some efficiencies there. And then lastly, on this slide, resident experience. You won't see much about this. In the next couple of slides are in recommendations. As I think you pretty unanimously heard, the experience of residents was very positive. Find great value in the home, really enjoy being in the home, and don't have any major concerns here from our perspective. Similarly, on the next slide, when it comes to quality and compliance, as Armando mentioned, no major concerns were identified or substantive concerns in 2025 when it comes to quality and compliance. So the home is doing quite well there. From a financial performance perspective, you'll see as we go throughout the recommendations that we've set up certain recommendations that can help with some of the stabilization and shorter term pressures when it comes to finances. And then other opportunities, which tie very closely to what other homes are doing in the other jurisdictions that Armando just mentioned, are considering for some of that broader, longer term financial stability. And then lastly, service delivery, similar to kind of resident experience, no significant gaps when it comes to the delivery of service at the home. So you won't see too many recommendations around this area either. So I'll move us into those recommendations. And again, I'll try to cover this in about 10 minutes so we can leave space for questions. We really divided, as I've alluded to, two sets of recommendations. So this slide here, and I'll provide a high-level overview of each. There's quite a bit more detail in the full report that we provided in terms of how you would implement, some of the considerations in terms of how you implement. But these are really around the kind of stabilizing of the current state. So most recommendations which could be implemented in the shorter to medium term and will help stabilize current state. The second set of recommendations that I'll go through, as I mentioned, are really those kind of bigger picture, longer term considerations for the town and for TPR. So I'll start with number one there. So pursue specialized funding streams. So you'll have heard throughout this conversation, there are various funding streams that are available to homes, whether those be through the Ministry of Long-Term Care, through Ontario Health, through other provincial programs. So there are different programs to consider. The report goes into some of the detail around potential funding there. So an example of one you'll see in the report is around behavioral support, for example. TPR has a locked unit, and there could potentially be some exploration around how that may tie to some provincial behavioral support unit funding. So there are other funding options to consider. They're relatively small, so don't see this as making a kind of very large impact from the financial perspective, but they are things to consider from a financial efficiency perspective and performance. The second recommendation you see there around continuing recovery and advocacy for ministry funding reallocation. So you'll heard the word clawbacks a couple of times in the current state review, and you'll see it in the report in terms of reconciliation and payments back to the ministry as it ties to things like occupancy, for example, or different reporting. So there are, the home has been actively engaged with the ministry over the last year or so to have discussion around some of the reconciliation and some of the clawbacks that TPR and the town have had to pay back to the ministry. There are also additional organizations, and the report goes into more detail, such as Advantage Ontario. This is a member-based organization which TPR is part of, and their main role is to help organizations like TPR deal with and advocate on behalf of themselves with the Ministry of Health to deal with some of these clawbacks. So kind of further exploring how you can take advantage of organizations like Advantage Ontario to help support you with some of that funding reconciliation. The third piece here around reviewing the hospital cost sharing contract. Armando highlighted in the current state findings there that this is one of those major areas where TPR and the town have seen increases over the years. The contract that exists with the hospital today is quite old. So it was from 2006, so a lot has changed since then. It focuses on services such as food, heating, laundry. So there is a recommendation there to kind of reopen and re-explore what that contract looks like with the hospital and make sure that there's a good understanding of the cost there and what they're going towards. The last one under financial improvement for the kind of current state shorter term is around scheduling processes. So we'll speak more in the third column there around the actual staffing, but from a scheduling process perspective, the home is very reliant on manual processes when it comes to scheduling, which does make it a pretty cumbersome process. It also makes it difficult to enforce some of the attendance management policies and making sure that we're kind of following our sick time or overtime, our kind of filling of gaps when it comes to scheduling effectively. So exploring the implementation of a scheduling management system. So there's some examples in the report of pretty common systems that are used in this space. We could see this as having quite a big improvement, both from the efficiency and the finance perspective, but also from the attendance management and kind of related staff and culture piece. If we move over to the middle section there around strengthening governance. So as I alluded to throughout, there are strong groups in place. So for example, the Committee of Management, we have the Resident and Family Council, and those are all required by legislation to be in place. Today, these groups are, more there for information sharing. So we've suggested as part of this review in terms of structures and operations to consider what maybe broader role those groups could play in decision-making or being more involved in terms of kind of performance and what decisions the home might be making. So there's opportunity to explore kind of the roles and responsibilities of those structures. Number 6 is around the update of technology administrative systems. So as Amanda highlighted in the current state, a lot of process right now and documentation is paper-based. So really trying to make that move away from paper-based systems into more of a digital side. Again, this helps with some of the communication pieces that we talked about. It helps with consistency. It helps with access to information. And it also aligns very closely with some of the broader work that the town is doing when it comes to digital transformation. And then number 7, so the last recommendation here within structure and operations is really around strengthening the HR integration with the town. So we'll have seen in the jurisdictional review that other municipally operated homes have found benefit in making sure that the home is leveraging kind of the shared services where they can. So one of the ones that we've identified here is a good opportunity is that HR integration and really providing leveraging the town service when it comes to TPR's HR function. The last column on the right here is around staffing and culture. So the first piece is really around that workforce planning, recruitment, and retention. We've heard and we see that this is a common issue amongst most homes, and we heard it pretty unanimously in the jurisdictions we looked at, but really focusing for TPR in terms of stabilizing our staffing pool. We saw some of the most issues when it came to the PSWs, the RPNs that work within TPR, and really needing to kind of for TPR reassess what that mix between, say, full-time and part-time staff looks like so that we can appropriately manage the kind of staffing mix and the pool of resources that you need for the home. Enhancing leadership communication. So this really stemmed from a pretty broad desire that we heard across TPR to enhance the avenues or pathways that are available for kind of clear and consistent communication across the home. So there are a couple different examples within the report in terms of whether they're daily meetings or huddles, how updates about the home are shared, some improvements that could be made there that will impact the staffing and the culture side. And then lastly, and again, overall culture, so strengthening that organizational culture and staff engagement. So we heard kind of different opinions from the home. Some staff are very, very positive. Other staff have some feedback in terms of how we could improve the culture. So again, within the report, we provided some specific examples when it came to opportunities to increase culture, make sure that staff feel like they're being brought along in decision-making, and making sure that they also feel that there's clear ways to raise any concern or raise any questions if they have it. So this would be the set again to stabilize that current state. The second set of recommendations, which I'll have Armando put up on the screen here, and then I'll just do one quick wrap-up slide and then we'll open it up for questions. is around the kind of future state or expansion opportunities. So Armando alluded in the jurisdictional scan that a lot of other homes have also had to consider what other ways are there from a financial perspective, from a revenue generating perspective that they need to explore. And these are a couple different avenues that are pretty common. So the first one here on the top left is around redevelopment opportunities. So this would not be necessarily to replace or redevelop the existing home itself, but it really comes from the perspective of the more beds you have, and the ministry suggests that increase in bed numbers happens in about 32 beds groupings. The more beds you have, the more efficient that an operation can run. So TPR right now is not technically at the kind of highest number of beds that it could most efficiently operate at. However, based on size, it does have as many beds as it can possibly hold today. So there are considerations around whether you could increase to, for example, say 96 beds for minimum efficiency versus if we're using that 32 bed number, 128, for example, has, optimal efficiencies based on what you see in other jurisdictions. This obviously has, as you see on the right-hand side, some consideration around what redevelopment can you do with the current building, the current land. There also is some funding that is currently available through the Ministry of Health to support projects like this. So there's approvals and considerations that would have to happen there. The second option that a lot of homes consider is expanding the service model. So this is what they call a campus of care approach. And this is where you really think about the continuum of care for seniors. So this is where, in addition to the long-term care beds that are operated by TPR today, you could expand that continuum to things that types of aging in place types of beds, so different than long-term care. So you have things like assisted living, you have respite, you could just have seniors apartments. So this is something, again, that a lot of organizations have considered in that campus of care. It allows residents to move through and progress along that continuum of care as they need it. Part of that to consider, again, is a space and functionality perspective, also assessing within Kirkland Lake, what would the demand for those various types of services be for seniors. The next, which we've heard across, again, different jurisdictions and comparator homes, is around other revenue generating opportunities. So this is where you could look at other services that could be integrated into the home that are going to be revenue generating, but maybe in a slightly different space. So examples include childcare, it could be retail, it could be some kind of food or beverage. Most of the time you see that organizations suggest it be in something that is similar or related to the long-term care you provide. But again, it is just other revenue generating opportunities that could be integrated into the same or close by facility. And then lastly, the kind of fourth option that was put into the report, and this would really be from our perspective if the stabilization of current state and then kind of options 1, 2, 3 here for future state were considered and not felt to be feasible or sufficient by the town and by TPR, that there is the ability to divest the operations to an external provider. The only caveat here being as a not-for-profit and related to the Fixing Long-Term Care Act, it would have to move to another not-for-profit provider. It could not, for example, and we heard quite a bit of concern about, for example, moving to a private provider if this was a direction that the town was considering. So these are, as again, those kind of future state expansion opportunities. So I'll wrap up and then we can take the slides down so we can see everyone a little bit better on our screen. But overall, some key findings here, definitely heard across our entire review that TPR is a very valued asset. Really strong from the residents, the family satisfaction, as well as staff really, speaking very highly of the organization and what they do for the community. The financial and workforce pressures we have seen are increasing and have highlighted some of those main areas around staffing, some of the rising costs there, and some of the manual systems that we've given some recommendations on. And then improving funding use. So, how do we update key systems, make sure roles are clear, and strengthen our day-to-day communication as some of those practical steps that, again, in the shorter term, we can take to stabilize. And then again, considering those future state options that exist, but there are, as detailed in the report, many considerations that would have to go into aligning on which of those future state options you might want to pursue. So I will end there, and I'll ask Armando to take the screen down. Thank you. And I will pass back to Madam Mayor for questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Before opening the table, do staff have anything to add for questions? Nothing noted. Members of council, do you have any comments or questions for the presenters?
Yes, I do.
Councillor Shabba?
Yeah, thank you through you, your worship, to the presenters. I'm looking at slide number 3. The optimization of the current TPR. So how did you come up with the 96 beds for minimum efficiency and all that? How did you come up with that number? Because I was thinking when I was reading this yesterday that when they built this TPR, the new one, someone must have had a number in mind that would, at least a break-even number. So, well, we know what's happening now. So how do we get this number? Is this number a moving target? Because even if we adopt this, by the time the expansion is done, you're looking at 3 years to 4 years down the road. So how can we still rely on this number? So we have 96, okay, we're gonna break even, or we're gonna, you didn't put it that will be improve our fiscal sustainability by how much, we don't know. But just, can you take me through that? How do we get that number? Is that number a moving target?
Yep, thank you, Councillor. So I will start with that, and then I might ask Nikki from our team, she can add in as well. So that 96 comes from, as I mentioned, the Ministry of Health has moved to this, I'll call it 32 kind of bed pods, if you want to call it. So they've essentially determined that the 32 beds, and if you put those in 32 bed increments, so that's how you get to the 96, is what leads to most efficient operations. So that is how we get to the 96. And then essentially you could add to that an additional 32, additional 32, additional 32 to increase efficiencies. So that's essentially based on the Ministry of Health's recommendation right now. And that's what those other comparator homes, for example, that Armando went through, that's similar methodology that they're following as they've been thinking about reconstruction or changes or enhancements to their home. So I'll pass it to Nikki and our team to add anything. We can't speak to how the home itself was designed when it was rebuilt and got to the current bed number. So I'd have to rely on Tanya or Alan for that, but I'll pass it to Nikki first. Oh, you're just on mute, Nikki.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Lindsay, and thank you, Councillor, for the question. And just building a little bit on what Lindsay was saying is this is a ministry guideline that's been provided based on what's been seen across homes throughout the province, both for-profit, not-for-profit, public and private. A lot of it has to do with the staffing ratios that then guide the that 32 ideal number, right? Whether that's 32, 64, etc. So that's where that comes from. To your question, is it a moving target? I don't think so. It's hard to comment. I previously worked in the sector going back, I guess, almost to 2010, and that was always a rule of thumb. So maybe that's a better way to do it. Nothing is ideal, but it is based on the staffing ratios of what the average case mix index, which is the acuity of care needed for the residents, is, and that's where that comes from.
Thank you for that explanation. Councillor Owens?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I was reminded today that I have to play nice, so I'm going to try and be positive on this one. I was afraid when and it's no criticism on the report, that the report is well done, it's detailed, you've done your work. But what I was afraid was gonna happen when we agreed to this has basically happened. There's no magic solution. The home is well run. Tanya, you do a good job. Wages have gone up. I cost more as a teacher than I did 5 years ago, a lot more than I did 20 years ago. Wages have gone up a lot. Food has gone up, everything's gone up. There's no magic solution here. We are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I'm a little disappointed, and not through the work you've done, but where do we go now? There's nothing that's gonna change tomorrow in the operation of TPR. The staff are still gonna keep doing what they're doing. They're still gonna provide excellent care. They're gonna provide excellent food, and we move on.
May I comment?
Yes, of
Yes.
course. Thank you, Councillor.
Great, thank you, Councillor Owens. I understand what you're saying in I'm going to say the business and the care delivery required in long-term care is a very, very fine balance. And the cost of delivering service has gone up, as you'd said, the staffing costs, food costs, heating costs. We've seen all of that. Ministry funding, not unlike other parts of our community and society, doesn't necessarily always keep up to the same extent. And this is becomes more of maybe a political issue, but it is very, very challenging. And as you can see, the home is well run. The quality is there. The staffing ratios are good. And you would never want to sacrifice that for dollars, but this is the balance. And this is something not only is TPR challenged by, but many homes throughout the province are challenged by it, unfortunately. So I know it's not an answer, but it's an extremely fine balance. Do some homes manage to make a profit? Yes. May that be on the back of quality and safety and staff satisfaction? Potentially.
Thank you for that. Councillor Ranger?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. My question is directed at, currently they're running a deficit of around 25%. And one of the focuses or highlights that you brought up was scheduling management system or software is what I'm assuming you mean by that. Do you have any idea on the initial cost of that and what the deficit would potentially be decreased by utilizing some software services for managing the schedule and systems?
Thank you, Councillor Ranger. So I can briefly speak to that. We don't have an exact dollar value because as part of this, we didn't do a detailed, requirements assessment or whatnot to give exactly what the scheduling system would require. But there are in the report a couple different scheduling options. And sorry, I'm just going to find the table in my report here. So there are a couple different tools. We don't have the exact dollar value. We could take it as an off note and share it back through staff afterwards. We'd probably have to check in with our tech team just to get from their experience. But there are in the report some examples of systems that have been used pretty commonly across the home. And they've got some cost there in terms of dollars per month. They're not excessively high, but typically you would go through the formal process of engaging with those vendors, doing a bit of a requirements assessment, and then getting the direct costs, but they're not overwhelmingly high. So some examples for in the report are around $5 per month per user, for example. So they can make a pretty big difference for a relatively minimal investment. And as I mentioned, we think that could have both efficiencies from the actual scheduling side and how much manual labor goes into the scheduling today, but also have a pretty positive impact in terms of some of the attendance management, making sure that we're really following closely in terms of, who's getting what overtime, what order we're doing it in, and making sure that we're following all of our collective agreements as well in a much easier way than it's done today.
Thank you.
Councillor Owen, sorry, before you begin, Director, would you like to add to that?
If I can just interject, thank you, Madam Mayor, through to everyone in council. The home does have integrated technology funding from the ministry that does support this type of application.
Thanks. Thank you for that. Councillor Owen?
Yes, so your worship. Mine are all money questions, because for me, that was the point of this, was to try and get TPR to operate at a smaller loss. I'm not a dreamer. I didn't think it would break even, but a smaller loss. Now, one of the things pointed out in the report is the amount of overtime. Now, I know our director and myself as a member of the community management took great pride in the fact that we have not used agency nurses. I know there are other advantages than just the money in not using agency nurses, because when you use your own staff, they already have a relationship with the residents. They're invested in the residents, and so now, is it cheaper from a dollar value? Would it have been cheaper for us to have engaged in hiring agency nurses?
Thank you, Councillor.
Time?
So I will ask maybe Nikki just to comment on the general kind of agency piece there. So I'll pass it to her to speak to that.
Great, thank you, Lindsay, and thank you, Councillor. The agency nursing is extremely expensive, and it comes with a lot of risk. I don't know what percentage, but it would probably be more expensive than your overtime. That said, you really have to look where your OT costs are coming from, and if they are coming from management, for example, it's not going to be agency nursing or temp agency isn't going to resolve that. If it is mainly from your nursing and your personal support, then it may resolve the OT, but it's extremely upwards of 3 times as much. The cost of agency, and I'm not sure it's and this is maybe more of a personal opinion, the risk. We know medication errors go up, not only decrease in satisfaction of residents and families, but that continuity of care, risk of infection goes up because you're bringing out a lot of outside people into the home. And the biggest risk would be medication errors due to inconsistent training, etc. But just strictly from a cost perspective, agency nursing is not going to solve this problem.
And I don't want anybody to think I was recommending agency nursing, but I had to ask the question because overtime has been a big issue. Switching to the non-paper system, what's the cost and what's the payback? Like,
so thank you, Councillor. So in terms of cost for switching to the system or switching from everything paper-based to non-paper-based, so we don't in the report have an exact cost of what a switch like that would look like. That really depends on kind of what systems the organization would want to implement. I know the town itself is also doing some of that work in terms of just broader digital transformation. So what kind of efficiencies or efficiencies, I guess, from both doing it at the same time could lead to. I think from the payback perspective, from our view, this one really ties more into just general operations. So how staff, how leadership can access various documentation, whether that be policies or whether it be communications, and just streamlining that access, making sure it's consistent, making sure those communication channels are clear. So it really, I would say, more probably enhances the experience that people have within the organization and some of those efficiencies of saving time from being in a digital versus a paper-based system versus potentially resulting in huge cost savings. I would say it's more from that kind of experience and making sure that the culture and the communications piece is very clear and access to information.
Final question?
maybe.
Okay. So just in the spirit of allowing each council member to have an opportunity to speak, I'm going to switch over to Councillor Shabbat and I will come back to you. Thank you. Councillor Shabbat?
Yeah, thank you to you, Your Worship. So I'm looking at, I just want clarification. I'm looking at your slide on jurisdictional review. And you have 2 columns there, very well put together. On the financial one, I guess we're losing money due to ministry clawbacks, but I don't think this is all the time. I just see one time 1.2 million was clawed back, right? Some amount anyways. I read that then on the second column, the last paragraph, ministry negotiations. I know you got examples of homes that are, you said homes that achieve positive outcomes after negotiating with the ministry to reduce clawbacks. And there's something about municipal contribution. I don't know how that will rhyme with that, but can you share the names of those homes with our municipal our staff in private, so that we can get the best practices on how to negotiate to we don't have any clawbacks anyways, because the occupancy is not a problem, but we have wait lists, right? I'm not too sure. I try to look at those two. I say, well, shortfall due to occupancy shortfall, but we don't have occupancy shortfall. We have wait list, right? So what kind of negotiation can we actually do to reduce clawback when we don't have any? I don't know.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
just to me, I'm just confused about what that's
Yes, no
big.
problem.
Clawback every year. I can understand that. We have clawback every year. So can we not negotiate to get a zero and reduce clawback? But in this case, it's only one time that I see here. One time.
Okay, well,
Thank
we'll
you.
allow that. Thank you. The presenter saying.
Thank you, Counselor. So in terms of the clawbacks, and I will probably rely on a couple people to enhance this conversation. Nikki will have a perspective, and I also may pass it over to Lloyd and Tanya to speak specifically to some of the negotiations, because we've not been part of those. So from a jurisdictional perspective, the homes that we engaged through this, so the three that are in the report, Timmins, West Nipissing, and Muskoka, they all share similar sentiment in terms of having to go through the kind of clawback process and reconciliation and negotiation with the ministries. So they have experienced it. It could be to a varying degree from a dollar perspective relative to TPR, because everyone, has different reporting. So they would be three, for example. Some of their sharings are in the report in terms of best practices and how they've dealt with the ministry. Most, as long as their members take advantage of Advantage Ontario, as we put in the report, they're member-based, which TPR, as I mentioned, is part of it. And they very largely focus on trying to deeply understand the finances and know how to kind of interact with the ministry, understand why there are clawbacks, and potentially get them reduced as well. In terms of what's in the report of where the clawbacks have come from, they're quite a few years behind in terms of reconciling. So, for example, and Nikki can elaborate to this, like during COVID, there were some pretty big issues when it came to occupancy reporting because of some of the protocols and whatnot that were in place in terms of when you might be able to add a new resident to the home versus when someone had left the home. And unfortunately, because of COVID protocols, that technically might impact your occupancy, even though, as you highlighted, you actually have a wait list. So there are some very specific nuances and difficulties in terms of how that reporting works and what the ministry gets and that reconciliation. So I might pass it to Nikki if there's anything to add, and then to Lloyd and Tanya if there's anything from the current negotiations they'd want to highlight.
Thank you, Councillor Shaba. And I just have one point, I guess, to add to Lindsay's point, and it would really be emphasizing leveraging Advantage, the association, to understand those clawbacks, because a lot of the clawbacks happen as a result of how things are reported and how the ministry interprets that. And Advantage, their team there are the experts in that, in ensuring that the reports are going in properly. And should the clawback be based on something that happened maybe 4 years ago when you were in a position that you couldn't admit, creating occupancy and availability out of your control, they are able to, they have those ministry relationships to help, and they will kind of be in your corner to negotiate, to minimize the clawback. I don't know if they would do it retrospectively and to go back, or retroactively, sorry, to go back, but that may be worth considering. But again, Advantage, and it's already a service being paid for as a member, right? To really leverage the funding and finance team there.
Thank you for that. Staff, do you have anything to add on that item?
through the Madam Mayor. So I do want to comment on a couple of things. So yes, we do have clawbacks. We've had clawbacks since before I've started here. It's the method of funding for TPR, and I'll keep this as brief as I can, is essentially what I call a bucket method. We get a certain amount of dollars to spend on nursing, different types of care within the home. And if you don't spend the money in any particular bucket, there's a chance that some of that money will be due back to the ministry. So it's not necessarily, big picture, one number falls out the bottom, we owe it to the ministry. We have several programs going on at TPR at any point in time, and they're all funded differently. They're all funded. Some of our challenges with those funding buckets, they have different year ends. The ministry primarily works on a March year end, we're a December year end. The timing of the funding, we have got funding, we've got dollars sent to our bank, and then 2 months later, we get the letter explaining what the dollars are for. And at that point, we have 1 month to spend the dollars. So the challenges are very unique. My background is I've seen an awful lot of different financial reporting and funding type of models. This one is one of the most unique ones I've ever seen. There are several other challenges keeping track of the buckets and allocating costs to them and getting that information to the ministry. The process is called the annual reconciliation report. It's what we submit. The Advantage Ontario suggestions by SBR, we've already started trying to leverage that. We've had some conversations with Advantage. They've pointed out some things to us that we might be able to take advantage of. At this point, we're not really sure. It's kind of we had our MP here visit. There's almost an element of that in the process. Is who are you talking to, and what is your argument for why we're different than the model thinks we are? I think that kind of just talks to the overview of it. We could certainly have a more in-depth discussion, I guess, in the future. Maybe Tanya could talk to the occupancy mix, because that's got its own challenges in itself.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through to the councillors. So one of the things that Nikki spoke about was occupancy kind of during COVID times, during outbreaks. So if a bed is unoccupied, we are obligated not to fill that bed during an outbreak. Nobody's funding that bed. So that increases or decreases our occupancy percentage. So ensuring that we notify the ministry of those unoccupied beds, the rationale for the unoccupied beds. This is kind of one of those takeaways that we reached out to Feroz at Advantage Ontario, and we're looking at, can we write something to the ministry and say, this is the reason those beds were unfilled. We're in outbreak from this date to this date, and this many beds were unfilled, essentially.
Thank you for those clarifications. Sorry, I am going to come back to Councillor Owen before inviting another member to re-speak.
Through you, Your Worship. In terms of switching HR, part of HR away from Tech Pioneer to the town's HR department, is that a real savings, or is that just switching money from one pocket to another? Because the ratepayer is still gonna have to deal, like the corporation's still gonna have to deal with the HR situations. The ratepayer is still paying for it. So is that, I don't understand.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So I would say for this one, again, it's I would say less about the cost savings that you'll necessarily get from integrating or better leveraging the town HR. This one really, I would say, fits again more under that kind of structural, that operational piece of leveraging the town's HR. It clarifies some of the procedures. It makes sure that roles and responsibilities are clear, and allows kind of, I'll say, a bigger focus on HR. We heard through some of the engagement right now, sometimes it can't be as much of a focus within the home, just given where you are providing care and kind of where you need to put effort. So better leveraging the town to provide the HR service frees up the home to be focused on the actual care delivery piece, and less on some of the HR functions that it has today. So again, it would be less from a large cost savings, more towards kind of the roles, responsibilities, and what staff within the home versus the town HR department is focusing on.
Thank you.
Anything further? No. Okay, Councilor Ranger?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, it's more of a statement. When you look at that large chunk of clawback for the ministry in 2020, 2021, that all highlights that it was COVID. And so it's really, to me, an anomaly. It would be more going into 2023, 2024. If there were large clawbacks, I would be questioning, you know, why is it needing to be such a large amount of money? But so I'm sure for the public, it might be quite sticker shock to think, oh my gosh, you know, $1 million plus is being pulled back, but it's an anomaly situation that is attached to that dollar amount. And so it's really not something that we can, you know, prepare for, or, you know, question the efficiency of the facility when that is, the word COVID just kind of answers it for you. Thank you.
Thank you for that statement. Councillor Shabbat?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the presenters. I'm looking at slide number of the slide before conclusion slide. I don't see a number in this slide that you just, 20 of 22. You give us examples of homes that are doing development. That's really very, very helpful, you know, to see that something like that is happening. However, in your item number 4, I'm not too sure, maybe I should pose this question. Are you aware of any municipalities that are undertaking that option? Because, I mean, we're looking for best practices and all of that stuff. Maybe there's none. I don't know, but we have examples of development, and it is, if you're not aware of that, that's fine, but I just want to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So I'll speak to the first element there, and then I might call in Nikki from my team for the second there around if there's, she knows of any others that have considered the divest option. For example, in redevelopment, which really aligns more with kind of 1 or 2 or 3 within those future state options. For example, from the homes that we spoke to, Golden Manor, which is in Timmins, they have been one of the comparator homes that have been undergoing a pretty large redevelopment. So they're moving their way along that process. They're not completely done yet, but they have undertaken quite a large redevelopment following that kind of 32-bed model, as well as considering the campus of care approach, where you potentially consider integrating other types of beds outside of long-term care. So that would be a good example of a redevelopment. Same thing as Nipissing West. They also have that campus of care approach. So we saw within that jurisdiction, when we were able to speak to them, they have kind of the long-term care side, they have general seniors housing, they have what they call life lease units, and then they also have some community support services. So again, it diversifies it a bit broader than the long-term care homes, which TPR is solely focused on today. So those are 2 pretty good examples of redevelopments, campus of care that have seen pretty good success so far. And I'll pass it to Nikki to add anything from our side.
Great, thank you. And Council, just to clarify your question related to divest, you're looking for other municipalities that have divested?
Yeah, that are in the process.
I'm not familiar with any that have done it. I am familiar, I know Halton Region considered it about maybe 10 years ago, 2015, 2016. They have 3 accredited municipal homes. They face the similar challenges in terms of, you know, pressure from the community around, you know, is this the line of business? You know, is this a critical business to the municipality and to their region? They still have the homes. They did not divest. But they're the only region I know that, I'm sure others may have considered it, but that's one I'm familiar with, that they did consider it and chose not to.
Anything further from members of council? Nothing else noted. Thank you very much for your time this evening. We do appreciate the work you've done on this, and you've certainly highlighted that there may not be a silver bullet to all of our challenges, but there's definitely efficiencies. And the biggest highlight I take away is that our care just has not been affected regardless of the challenges experienced at this home. And it is really a testament to the professionalism and dedication of Tanya and her staff. So thank you very much for your report. All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Thank you, everyone. So at this point, we're just going to take a 5-minute bio break, and we will resume in a few moments. Oops. We're now reconvening from our short recess. We are moving on to item 8.2, 2025, a year in review, moved by Councillor Ranger, seconded by Councillor Rick Owen.
Be it resolved that report number 2026 CAO 006 entitled 2025, a year in review, be received for information.
And this will be presented by our CAO, Mr. Alan Smith. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. First of all, I'd like to thank all directors and managers for putting all the information together, and also to our workforce development, street initiatives coordinator, Stephanie, for putting all of the information together to one year-end review. And the report for council this evening provides a review of some of the accomplishments of 2025 by council and staff. The highlights mentioned in the report are certainly not exhaustive, but provide a reminder to residents of some of the key undertakings in 2025 that had an impact on the community, and those initiatives that will make Kirkland Lake stronger in the years to come. In 2025, the council held a town hall meeting, the first in many years. This provides residents with the opportunity to voice their concerns and suggestions to make their community even better. Resulting from that meeting, council took action. It had the winter maintenance plan changed that made school zones safer during the winter months. Council also had safety in mind when they authorized the installation of a 4-way stop at the intersection of Allen and 2nd Street. Mayor and council also advocated to various ministries at Roma, Good Roads, and AWOL conferences. We entertained the Minister of Economic Development at our town hall. This was a productive meeting between the mayor and the minister. With council support, staff accomplished a wide range of activities and projects that have and will have an impact on our community. For instance, Public Works made significant headway with improving our stormwater system, and in late 2025, the town was notified that we will be receiving $1.6 million in funding from the Health and Safety Water Fund to advance flood mitigation projects on Prince and Earl Streets and the Allen Avenue area. Connecting link projects were also completed, and road resurfacing of temporary road locations across Kirkland Lake and Swastika were done. Now, I mentioned safety earlier. Well, our fire service department can continue to keep our residents safe and launched an emergency communication system, KL Alert, powered by Volume Alert. This communications tool will benefit residents and those who visit our town for years to come. In 2026, marketing of KL Alert by fire services will continue. TPR, as we just heard, continued to provide outstanding care to its residents. The primary care model was implemented on 2 large resident units. This model will promote stronger resident-staff relationships in years to come. The Development Enterprise Services Department had an extremely busy year. The town recorded a total construction value of just over $34 million in 2025. This is 3 times the amount of seen in 2024. This speaks to strong investor confidence and continued economic growth in Kirkland Lake. The Community Service Department came to advance the work on the multi-year green and inclusive community building initiative focused on HVAC efficiencies at the complex. Staff began exciting retrofit work at the old pool funded by NOHFC. The department was also successful in securing funding from several different sources to support programming. The Corporate Service Department saw the Treasury Division complete 32 tax sales, and staff also played a significant role in establishing the new partnership with the Enterprise Fleet Management. An updated asset management plan for phase 4 was also completed. Human resources focused on the needed enhancing health and safety practices across the organization. The close division within the Administrative Services Department had another busy and successful year. The clerk's office continued to advance governance excellence, legislative compliance, and service modernization in 2025, while supporting council, staff, and the community. Key governance bylaws and policies, including the council procedure bylaw, was completed in 2025. The clerk's office also started preparations for the 2026 election. The corporate branding project was also completed, including development of branding guidelines. The Office of the CAO continued to focus on culture and workplace wellness. The town's employee recognition framework was enhanced, including the implementation of a dedicated recognition week to formally recognize employees' years of service. A range of employee wellness initiatives was delivered to support physical, mental, and social well-being. The review of non-core services continued while ensuring staff were meeting the objectives contained in the town's strategic plan. What I just mentioned was just some examples of what was accomplished in 2025. And of course, there are many more happenings that was not mentioned due to the confidential nature of the work undertaken, legal issues, for example. And of course, like most years, there was some stressful times in 2025. But working together, council staff met those challenges. We didn't shy away from them. Instead, as a team, we rose to the occasion and became stronger. It is the strength that carries us through to 2026 and an exciting year ahead.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Shava?
Yeah, through your worship, this is a very well put together, very comprehensive on the activities of council. So people want to know what we as council have done. This becomes a reference page for them, in my view anyways, because at times people don't see what the good people around this table and staff what we do. So this is a good summary of that. I have one question. Anyways, at the beginning of this, I saw the picture of the mayor, very well presented, and the CEO. The picture's not bad either. But I see under council, I see pavement and shrubs and trees. What about our picture? It's a joke.
Actually,
Just a joke.
we'll take note of that recommendation for
No, I'm just doing
2026.
Maybe that's all we have, shrubs and pavement and trees. Say council, okay, where's the council?
That's how people know you're doing your job, because there's all the good things.
So, the second question that I have is the construction 30, I see that here, I just missed my page. About 30 something, where is it? On construction side, are we adding up all the activities when we report all this construction activity? Are we adding up the ones that are going on in the mines too around us, or just activities that are limited to the town?
Through Madam Mayor to members of council, I have that director.
Yeah, I need to find that page, and I just lost it. I tagged it.
Welcome, Director.
Good evening, to Madam Mayor, to council. Total construction value is any permitted construction that went on throughout the year.
Yes.
We report these numbers to MPAC monthly, and they make up anything. So it could be industrial, commercial, residential.
Okay.
Yeah, everything together.
Okay, thank you. Nice.
Thank you for that clarification. Anything further from members? Counselor Dykens.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just, I think this is a question for the treasurer. I know he told us before, but there was $400,000 realized in tax sales. And just where that money goes, I know you told us before, treasurer, but I just.
Through you, Madam Mayor. So any money collected through the tax sale process by us is essentially split. We keep the portion that's related to municipal taxes. And there's a smaller portion that is returned to the different school boards, as when we do our taxation, we're collecting on their behalf as well. It reduces that taxes receivable that you guys see in your OKPIs on a regular basis. It's part of that. It doesn't change what I call the income statement, the revenues or expenses. When we collect those, it's just like collecting taxes through the normal system, except for we have forced the sale of a property to be able to collect those taxes. That's for the successful tax sales. The other half of the equation we've discussed, I could rediscuss it if you'd like, but that's a different beast in the sense that we have to write them off to the extent that we vest any properties. And in our previous report, the council, we laid out the numbers associated with that and how it's going to affect us.
Follow up?
So I'm just not following, sorry. Where does that show up? Like, so if we get $400,000, some goes to the school board. So we'll say, I'm just gonna pick a number, 300,000 is going to the bank. Does it like, and then where does it show up? I guess under the taxes, right?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. It doesn't show up on taxes at all. It shows as an increase in the bank for actual cash we collected from the tax sale and a reduction in the taxes receivable account.
Okay.
So it's just, in my world, that's the debit and the credit. The revenue and the write-off associated with any tax activity happens in the year. So the revenue could have been recognized anytime over the last 10 years, builds up to that receivable that we then collect, in this case through tax sale. Hopefully I'm not gumming that up any more than I have to.
Just for clarity, sorry.
Yeah.
So again, I'm picking a number, $300,000 went in the bank.
Yeah.
What?
So in your example, if we collected $300,000 through the tax sale, $300,000 would have went into the bank, and the taxes receivable account would have went down by $300,000. Just like in a business, if you set up somebody buys something for you, they purchase on credit. The time between when they purchase and when you collect, you set up a receivable, recognizing they owe you money.
I get the accounting part, but so do we have access to that, like that money now that?
Yeah.
That's kind of my question.
It's not restricted in any way once the tax sale is complete. It sits in our bank account, it's available to help us fund our normal activities. Cash flow basis, again, it doesn't change the tax levy.
No.
Right? It's just more cash sitting in our bank. I guess the benefit of it is we'll earn a little bit more interest on any cash sitting in the bank account.
Thank you for that. Anything further?
Yeah.
Counselor Shabbat?
Through your worship, I just want to follow up with that, treasurer. Now, this $300,000 analogy that you use, that would be after we deducted all the expenses and legal whatnot. That is the actual amount that we have.
Yeah.
With the net, is that correct?
Through you, Madam Mayor. When the tax sale is successful, we collect both our outstanding taxes, the outstanding education taxes, and all of the fees and charges that are accrued during the tax sale process.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be 300,000, the tax sale wouldn't be 300, it'd be some number higher than that in the example we were given. And we keep the 300,000 associated with our taxes receivable. We also keep the portion that was expenses that we've been paying all along for the tax sale costs. But it doesn't, again, it doesn't change anything. Other than we have an increase in the bank and a decrease in the receivable.
Can I follow up, please?
Okay, so
I just,
absolutely. I think we're getting really into the
Yeah,
weeds
okay.
on like
I'm good,
an item.
I'm good.
Seeing that though, I know that there is public interest in this topic of understanding when we do the tax sales, how it affects the budget.
Yeah.
And clearly, we need to spend more time on this. So, because we have, a committee of the whole meeting, possibility that possibly this should be added to our next committee of the whole as a topic so that we can have a fulsome understanding rather than it being buried in a year-end report, if that's amendable to council. Yeah, there we go. Adding more work onto you, Mr. Treasurer, but
We'll come better prepared.
yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. I do appreciate it. Anything further on the year-end review? Just for my part, I just actually, they've been hit on. I did take note of the nearly $35 million in construction, because that's an indication that people are investing in our community, and I think that should be noted time and time again. 35 million is outstanding in 1 year, and it is a testament to our economic development staff and their hard work time and time again, and subsequent everybody else that's involved as well. It's just not a one-man band over there. It's definitely a joint effort. And then to speak to Councillor Shava, his note too, I did have, when people ask what do we get for our taxes, this report here is high level. It does not speak to the mundane every day in and day out items that keep the roads plowed or the services at TPR going or the programming at community services, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it definitely gives a good running list of the highlights of 2025. The only suggestion I have is perhaps this report can have its own link on the webpage, our landing page on the web, our website, sorry, just so that it doesn't get buried in the agenda and members of the public can find it easily for a few weeks or whatnot. That's my only suggestion out of this. Anything further from members of council? Nothing noted. All in favor? Opposed? Item carries unanimous. Thank you. Moving on, 8.3, 2026 municipal elections, advanced voting and reduced hours of voting for institutions and retirement homes. This will be presented by our municipal clerk, Jennifer Montroy, moved by Councillor Ladd Shava, seconded by Councillor Ranger.
Be resolved that report number 2026 ADM 002 entitled 2026 Municipal Elections, Advanced Voting and Reduced Hours of Voting for Institution and Retirement Homes be received, and that council authorize for advanced votes to be held prior to voting day and to provide for reduced hours of voting in institutions and retirement homes as presented, and finally that the bylaw be presented for 3 readings on March 3rd, 2026.
Thank you. You may proceed, madam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to the whole of council. This report seeks council's approval to proceed with advanced voting dates and reduce voting hours for institutions and retirement homes for the 2026 election events. Voting day is Monday, October 26th, and as in previous elections, administration is proposing multiple advanced voting opportunities to improve accessibility and convenience for voters. Advanced polls are planned at the Royal Canadian Legion on October 7th and 17th, and at the Riverside Community Center on October 14th. These dates and locations follow our historical model and meet legislative requirements. On voting day, reduced hours for voting is proposed for resident-only facilities, including extended care at Kirkland Lake, Tech Pioneer residents, and Blanche River Health Kirkland Lake site for long-term care residents only. This ensures accessibility while recognizing the unique needs of these facilities. Polls may close earlier if all residents have voted. There is no unplanned financial impact as costs are included in the election reserve and through the election budget planning. Overall, this approach supports accessible, fair, and compliant elections in Kirkland Lake. Administration is recommending that council receive the report and approve the proposed bylaw at its next regular meeting. And that is a summary of my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on this matter? None noted. All in favor? Opposed? All in favor? Oh, do you have a question, Counselor Dykens?
Thank you, Madam. Not, I guess it's a comment, like extended care is 10 AM to 1 PM. That's over like the lunch hour. And it's really hard for the staff to get people ready for lunch. So that was just, it's just a thought that came. Maybe the clerk has thought of that, and I'm just curious, because elections need to be, you have to have a reasonable opportunity to vote, right? So if the staff are getting all the residents, because it takes them a long time to get them to the meal and then away, and so that's my only, I don't know if it's a
Question, yeah?
concern or thought or, yeah.
Through Madam Mayor, in response to Councilor Bacon's question, the times established in the bylaw have been historically used for time immemorial in Kirkland Lake. The home has never expressed a concern with that element of time, and the homes have been very flexible in terms of providing me with their preferred times. But we only have a certain amount of staff, and we only have X amount of staff that can go to the various locations in the day while we're doing the election at the actual voting place, which is Royal Canadian Legion. So it has been limited to those times, I believe, in historical past. Some municipalities have actually gone and passed bylaws to have voting done outside of the voting day, but it clearly delineates in the act that it has to be done on voting day. So I take the stance that it continues to have to happen on voting day, and that the breaks allow for the election staff to also have breaks. So preparation of the meals, for example, for the residents, the home will make advance preparation so that they can feed the residents outside of the voting hours. Not all residents participate as well.
Just for
Follow up,
Yeah, so what's the reduced hours then? What was reduced?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So in essence, a reduced voting hours when I'm not allowing, or we are not allowing for somebody to be present from the hours of 10 AM when voting opens to 8 PM on voting day. So the reduced hours is the municipality will have somebody go to that voting location, which is an alternate voting location, during a set amount of time. It doesn't preclude somebody being brought from the home to the voting location to vote. That happened in the last election. We just have to be prepared that if that happens, we need to ensure that the voters list is not compromised, because we manage the voters list for the separately for the homes, a little bit differently, because we have off-site ballot casting. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that up, actually. So we're gonna retake the vote. All in favor? Okay, opposed? Item carried unanimous. Thank you. Moving on. 8.4 2026 municipal elections recount policy. This again will be presented by our clerk, Jennifer Montroy, moved by Councillor Ranger, seconded by Councillor Casey Owens.
Be it resolved that report number 2026 ADM 003 entitled 2026 municipal elections recount policy be received, and finally that council authorize the municipal clerk to maintain the existing statutory threshold for recounts pursuant to section 56 of the Municipal Elections Act, Stat SO 1996 for the 2026 municipal and school board elections.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the whole council again. This report provides an update on the town's recount policy for the 2026 municipal and school board elections. Under the Municipal Elections Act, an automatic recount is required where there is a tied vote or by court order. The act also permits council to adopt a policy that would require automatic recounts under other circumstances. Administration reviewed the options and recommends that we maintain the existing statutory threshold for recounts, meaning a recount would only be automatic in the case of a tie or as required by the act. Creating a separate closed vote policy was considered but is not recommended at this time, as circumstances can vary and the clerk can still conduct a recount as warranted. Keeping the statutory threshold supports clear, consistent, and fair election processes and aligns with our operational aims and sustainable core service delivery. Administration is recommending that the town proceed with recounts under the existing statutory provision as undertaken in the 2022 election event. That is a summary of my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Dykens?
To you, Madam Mayor, to the clerk. So you're saying the only recount is if there's a tie?
Correct.
Okay,
Follow up?
yes, we know that in several, not here, but, there is always mistakes with counting, and so I know, in one situation, it was 5 votes, and then they found out the other person actually won by 50 feet or something like that. So I'm concerned that can a candidate ask for a recount if, like, I know this is an automatic if it's tied, but can a candidate ask for a recount if the vote is closer? Is that what you're asking us to do, to have a different?
So I'll speak to the first part of your question, and then I will come back with what administration is recommending. So in terms of the what I characterize and what I was closed vote policy. Closed vote policies are typically undertaken when there's a count that's conducted by hand. We're using vote tabulating technology. Where the marks on the ballots are questionable, we go through severe testing with the machines to ensure that the accuracy of the tabulation is done. There's a 24-hour testing that's done, and then there's another 24-hour testing that's done, and it is mandatory. And then we actually open up the tabulating testing to the public and to the candidates and council. So at that point, I would discern whether or not there would be a concern with the machines that we would be using for tabulation, and it would probably bring some kind of emerging issue to council's attention. The problem that I face is that in an election year, council has to make a decision on its recount policy before nomination period opens, which is May 1st. So I don't technically get to test the machines until I receive them, which is typically in June, July. So if there were some kind of concern on my end in terms of the technology that we're using and the tabulation, that would be definitely bringing up to council's attention. In terms of establishing a different policy for different reasons why we would have a recount, it would need to be very specific why there would need to be a recount if it wasn't a tie vote. Somebody said, I have reason to believe that the election's been tampered with. Here's my reasoning, here's my rationale, here's the proof. I would then in turn, not on my own, probably with independent legal advice, as well as assistance from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, make a determination on whether or not a recount needs to happen in the election. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, that was the first part. The second part was if a candidate or a member of the public, I'm gonna just add, if that's all right, requested for whatever reason, can that be done as well?
Through Madam Mayor, so the second part of that question was answered, if they have to have tangible proof and rationale, and to show me that outside of one-on-one, there was some issue with the way that the votes were tabulated.
Follow up?
Yeah, machines aren't perfect, and this just makes me nervous, so that's just my personal.
No, I respect that. Thank you for your opinion. Anything further from members of council? Nothing further?
Can we have a recorded?
Absolutely, yeah.
So do you want to-
Yep, I'm sorry, so Madam Clerk will proceed with the recorded vote.
Recorded vote has been requested by the part of Councillor Dolly Dykens for agenda item 8.4. Councillor Dolly Dykens.
No.
Councillor Patrick Helms absent. Councillor Rick Owen.
Yay.
Councillor Case Knowles.
Yes.
Councillor Janice Ranger.
Yay.
Councillor Lad Chap.
Yay.
Mayor Stacy White.
Yay.
The motion is carried.
Thank you. The motion is carried. Item 8.5, 2026 municipal elections, use of corporate resources for municipal election purposes policy. This again will be presented by Municipal Clerk Jennifer Montroy, moved by Councillor Ranger, seconded by Councillor Rick Owen.
Be it resolved that report number 2026 ADM 004 entitled 2026 municipal elections, use of corporate resources for municipal election purposes policy be received.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to the whole council. This report provides information on administration's review of the town's use of the corporate resources for municipal elections purposes policy. This is a policy required and in accordance with the Municipal Elections Act, which clearly delineates the rules and prohibitions on the use of municipal resources during election period. The current policy was first implemented for the 2022 municipal and school board elections to ensure that town resources, including money, goods, services, and staff time, are not used in a way that could be perceived as contributing to a candidate, third-party advertiser, or a political party. Administration has reviewed the policy and recommends maintaining it without changes for the 2026 election cycle, as it remains understandable, effective, and compliant with legislative requirements, and has been successfully enforced to date. The existing policy has written supports clear, consistent, and fair municipal election practices in Kirkland Lake. As policy enforcement is part of regular operations, there's no financial impact in its continued use. However, any extraordinary efforts to address non-compliance would be managed within the existing budget election funds. That is a summary of my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of council? None noted. All in favor? Opposed? Item carried unanimous. Item 8.6, proposed direct negotiations for a technical investigation, leisure pool temperature fluctuations, post-deemed budget. This will be presented by Director of Community Services, Kim Clockers, moved by Councillor Dykens, seconded by Councillor Latchava.
Be it resolved that report number 2026 COM 003 entitled Investigation into Fluctuations Post-Deemed Budget be received, and that council approve a direct negotiation with Hollandia Pools and Spas to conduct a technical investigation into the leisure pool in the sum of up to $11,000 excluding HST to be drawn from the working capital reserve, and that the Director of Community Services and Chief Administrative Officer be authorized to execute documents required for the technical investigation in the form and manner necessary for it to take effect. And finally, that should any major cost be recommended in the technical investigation, a supplemental report be presented to council recommending next steps.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm here to present a report regarding the ongoing temperature concerns we have in the leisure pool at the Joe Mavronac Community Complex. The leisure pool, which opened less than 10 years ago, is designed to operate at approximately 32 degrees Celsius. Over the past several months, we have experienced inconsistent temperatures, with the pool dropping as low as 26 degrees at times. That difference is significant, particularly for infants, children, older adults, and those using the pool for therapeutic purposes. When the water is that much cooler than intended, it impacts comfort, participation, and overall user experience. Since the summer, staff has been actively working to identify the cause and resolve the problem. The staff included is the manager of Parks, Recreation, and Building Services, our manager of Aquatic and Recreation Services, and our lead hand. Together, they have completed dye testing to check for leaks, sealed potential defects in the liner seams, performed a gravity drain, replaced several valves, and confirmed that the boilers are functioning properly. Despite these efforts, the root cause still remains unknown and the issue has not been resolved. Because we have now exhausted the solutions that can be reasonably addressed in-house, we are recommending that council approve engaging Hollandia Pool and Spas, the contractor involved in the original installation of the pool, to complete an in-depth technical investigation. This would include sending a professional diver into the pool to carefully inspect the liner or comb the liner, and also inspect piping systems for any hidden failures that cannot be identified by town staff. The cost of this investigation is approximately $11,000 and would be funded through the working capital reserve. We are recommending a sole source for this because Hollandia has specific knowledge of our pool's construction, and proceeding through a competitive tender process may delay the investigation. Our goal is to restore the leisure pool to a consistent and appropriate temperature so that residents can enjoy it comfortably. Our programming can continue without any interruption, and that staff can have confidence that the system is operating as intended. The ongoing uncertainty and daily troubleshooting has been both frustrating for staff and the public, and we are looking to resolve this issue once and for all. Thank you, and I'm open to any questions.
Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Shabbat?
Yeah, to your worship, the question I have for the director is that, I guess the warranty on that linear pool is over with then. Did we ever have any warranty on it?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So since we can't identify the cause, whether it's a defect in the liner, the heating system, drains, it's hard to determine. So once we have those results from Hollandia, we may be able to look back on warranty and see if it can be covered that way.
Can I follow?
Follow
So
what?
do we still have warranty on it?
We have various warranties, yeah. 5, 10, 20, 25 years, depending on what part of the pool.
Oh.
And I wish I had that knowledge to share with you tonight.
Thank you for that. Anything further from members of council? Councillor Ranger?
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I think it also needs to be recognized that the amount of time and wages involved in those that have already reviewed it repeatedly are also, and their attention to this matter is redirecting them from other duties that they have, and they've exhausted those. So I think, you know, when you look at the price of this, they waited to come to us until all other avenues were exhausted, and now we need to look at, you know, what our next steps are and to get it done quickly. There have been lots of complaints or issues and concerns with the use of the pool and the temperature dipping. And even the costs or the stresses it's putting on other parts of the system, trying to get it back up to a reasonable temperature. These are all things I want the public to understand when we make our decision tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from members of council? Councillor Owen?
Your worship, I commend the staff for all the testing they've done. And I get it that you would want to hire Hollandia because they're familiar with the system. But I'm a little leery because it may be their work that's responsible for the problem. And to me, that's a conflict. It may not be to their advantage to. Anyways, I'm not saying no, I'm just saying I'm concerned because I see that as a very real conflict. And I'm trying to weigh out familiarity with potential liability on their behalf. So that's just a comment, and the wheels are turning.
Thank you for that. Anything further from members of council? Nothing further noted. All in favor? Opposed? Item carried unanimous. Moving on, item 8.7 was deferred. Item number 9, members' motions. There are none this evening. Item number 10, readings and consideration of bylaws. There are none this evening. Notices of motion. Councillor Owen.
At a future meeting, I will be bringing forward a motion concerning traffic safety in Kirkland Lake.
Thank you. Anything further from other members? Okay, item number 12, council reports and committee of council, local and regional board updates. Does any members at this table wish to update on any committees, any events? Councillor Owens.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. I'm gonna try and keep this one short. Over the weekend, there was a rather large fire in town. 2 things stood out to me on this one. The first one was, once again, the gratuitous complaining or these Facebook warriors, if you want, criticizing the work of the fire department, and on the other hand, want to congratulate them on the job well done. They managed to save the residents on either side, so I mean, that counts for something. Leading into that, sometimes sitting here, we wear many hats, and today I'm gonna take my counselor hat off and take advantage of the fact that I am also a high school teacher. And this part is directly related to part of my job. So in the conversation with my students yesterday, my grade 10 class, it came up, they were talking about who called 911 first, and me being me, when it comes to fires, I started asking questions, and turns out that a group of my students were actually traveling down Main Street at 1 o'clock in the morning and happens to be the first ones on scene. And so the students involved were Ben, Emily, Trace, Tyler, and Michael. And they called 911 and encouraged the one lady to get out of the house from an upper floor, and didn't hesitate, help pull the lady away from the building. And to me, that demonstrates a certain level of heroism. We sometimes wonder as teachers, we get these kids in grade 7 and then watch them grow up into young adults, and you wonder, do we actually do the job, or do we prepare them properly for all kinds of everyday situations? And sometimes we get the answer, sometimes we don't. And this time, because the kids are glued to their phones, we actually have video proof of what actions transpired. And I think it's worth a mention and congratulations on the part of the town of Kirkland Lake towards these poor kids.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Anything further? Councillor Owen?
Through you, your worship, and thank you, Councillor Owens. I think that's something that definitely needs to be recognized. My report is much lighter. I had the pleasure of traveling with the Kirkland Lake Minor Hockey under 6 players. The older players of the group went to Rouen, Noranda, where they played played a 5-minute shinny between periods of the the Huskies. So it was quite a thrill for the kids. They all fell in love with the Husky mascot, and they represented Kirkland Lake well, and Kirkland Lake's name was broadcast loud and clear at the arena. So I just want to thank Minor Hockey for arranging that and giving these kids a memory they will always remember.
Thanks for that. Anything further? Sorry, folks, I do have 3 pages. So I did meet with one local developer to review current building and service needs of the community. I was able to connect them with local service agencies to ensure we are not working as silos, but as a community to meet development needs. I also had a joint meeting with Director Labrador and a second developer also looking for ways to serve our community. In that case, the department is taking the lead. Administration staff and I have been working with provincial government for a solution to a local mailing address issue. It has been a very long road for this family, and work continues on the file. We have yet to receive confirmation from the appropriate agency that this issue has been resolved, and it has been going on for longer than this term of council. I drafted a support motion for the interlibrary loan issue to present to the Timiskaming Municipal Association at our next meeting, as well as had follow-ups with Maria Rodriguez, Policy Advisor of AMO, regarding the exotic animal issue, keeping in contact with Mayor Sharon Gaduri east of Latchford, as it was an occurrence in her community that sparked my advocacy in that area. I attended the open house at the local health unit, now under the NEPH umbrella, marking the 1-year anniversary of the merger. I was able to meet with administrators, board members from other municipalities, and frontline staff during this event. The OPP Detachment Board attempted unsuccessfully to meet once more, but in the agenda, we were given the local statistics for January and February. Of note, incidents of violent crime decreased by 33.3% over last year. I do want to draw attention to the number of Mental Health Act occurrences. In 2025, in the first 2 months, there were 42, and this year there were 39. To me, those numbers reinforce where dollars should be spent to address the crises we're seeing as a society, not just in KL, but across the nation. Recently, the Kirkland Lake and District Chamber of Commerce formally announced that the organization is currently inactive due to volunteer leadership and a vacant board of directors. A Chamber of Commerce is only as strong as the members who lead it, and ours has struggled over the last few years to find consistency in leadership around the table. This means that signature events like the Halloween scavenger hunt and Santa Claus parade will need community members to step up and organize in 2026. I hope that there were members of the business community willing to step up to organize these events. And as of today, at this time, 7 individuals have indicated their interest in receiving further information regarding leadership roles. I hope members of the business community can come together to fulfill the mandate of the Chamber of Commerce, including empowering, connecting, and advocating for business across the Kirkland Lake region and establishing a stronger business environment in the Kirkland Lake District, as stated on their website. And lastly, I had the pleasure of being the auctioneer at the 2-day Love is in the Air event presented by Animal Friends in KL and Miss Bella Beauty and Spa. If you think you can't make a difference in our community, I want to draw your attention to Miss Vanya Blau. This one woman's inspiration and love of animals, she took and developed this 2-day event herself, recruiting other members of the community along the way and volunteers who also wanted to do good things. I will forever use this platform to commend regular, everyday people in our community who take action to make a difference. Because when you choose to take action, rather than just sit back and criticize others for trying to, our community is all the better for it. Thank you for that. Moved by Councillor Janice Ranger, seconded by Councillor Casey Owens.
Be it resolved that the verbal updates from members of council be received.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Item number 13, proclamations and recognitions. 13.1, Epilepsy Awareness Month and Purple Day, moved by Councillor Shaba, seconded by Councillor Rick Owen.
Excuse me. Be it resolved that council sanction the proclamation for Epilepsy Awareness Month and Purple Day, March 26th and March 2026 and March 26th, 2026 in the town of Kirkland.
Thank you. Whereas March is Epilepsy Awareness Month, Purple Day is celebrated March 26th annually to increase understanding, reduce stigma, and improve the quality of life for people with epilepsy throughout the country and globally. And whereas, according to Epilepsy Canada, 1 in 100 Canadians are affected by epilepsy. And whereas epilepsy affects over 95,000 people in Ontario, with 30% living with uncontrolled seizures and 6,000 new diagnoses every year. Over 380,000 people in Canada and over 65 million people worldwide are living with epilepsy. And whereas the onset of epilepsy can occur at any stage of life and does not discriminate. And whereas Purple Day can improve the quality of life of people living with epilepsy, create a society that embraces the beauty of difference, and help us understand how we can all come together to make the world a better place. And whereas it is a symptom of a neurological disorder, a disorder that affects the brain and shows itself in the form of seizures. And whereas Kirkland Lake citizens are encouraged to make an effort this month to learn more about epilepsy, to fight the stigma that surrounds epilepsy, and wear purple to show their support. Now, therefore, I, Stacey White, Mayor of the town of Kirkland Lake, do hereby proclaim the month of March as Epilepsy Awareness Month, and do hereby proclaim March 26th as Purple Day in the town of Kirkland Lake. Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Item 14, additional information in Mayor's Provincial Policy Matters. 14.1, Memo 2025 Event Designation and Municipal Significance, moved by Counselor Ranger, seconded by Counselor Casey Owens.
Be it resolved that the information entitled Memo 2025 Event Designations of Municipal Significance be received for information purposes.
Any questions or comments? None noted. All in favor? Opposed? Item carried unanimous. Item 14.2, pothole repair funding, moved by Counselor Shava and seconded by Counselor Rick Owen.
Whereas annually, the Public Works Department's portion of the 2026 operating budget includes costs for remedial pothole repair. And whereas the town of Kirkland Lake made application to the Ontario Ministry of Transportation's 2025-2026 pothole prevention and repair program, which is a one-time unconditional funding of up to $38,000 made available to qualifying municipal projects. And whereas on February 6, 2026, the Director of Public Works was advised that the Ministry of Transportation has selected the town of Kirkland Lake as a recipient of the funding for its annual pothole remediation project. Therefore, be it resolved that council acknowledge receipt of the post-2026 budget funding in the sum of $38,000 for the project as presented in Schedule C of the transfer payment agreement between the Corporation of the Town of Kirkland Lake and His Majesty the King and Right of Ontario as represented by the Honorable Minister of Transportation, and finally that council authorize the Chief Administrative Officer and Director of Public Works to execute the necessary transfer payment agreement together with any reporting and compliance report necessary with respect to the project funding.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Item 14.3, general housekeeping, repeal of policy CS2 2020-001, moved by Counselor Owens, seconded by Counselor Ranger. Owens.
Whereas Kirkland Lake Public Library employee status is now established under the memorandum of understanding between the Corporation of the Town of Kirkland Lake and the Texas County Public Library Board effective November 5th, 2025. And whereas general housekeeping is being requested in order to remove any competing regulations or opinions, now that the Corporation of the Town of Kirkland Lake and the Texas County Public Library Board have formalized their service delivery relationship, therefore be it resolved that policy number CS 2020-001, library employee status be removed from the municipal policy manual effective immediately.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. At this time, we will normally take a brief recess before moving into closed. We have already had a recess. Just looking around council, should we proceed or take a 5-minute bio break?
Proceed.
It appears that we can proceed. Okay. All right. So, moving into closed session, moved by Counselor Ranger, seconded by Counselor Rick Owen.
Be it resolved that council adjourn in camera. Excuse me. Ooh, geez. It's one of those nights at 7:35 p.m. Pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, labor relations or employee negotiations, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local boards. Advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. A position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board for the following reasons. Item 15.1, collective bargaining United Steelworkers Local 2020. Item 15.2, verbal confidential proposal, municipal facility.
Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. We will now move into close. Okay. Welcome back. We are rising from in camera, moved by Counselor Ranger, seconded by Counselor Dykens.
Be it resolved that council reconvene in open session at 8:11 p.m.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Item number 16, recommendations for matters of Recommendations from matters in closed session, there are none. Item number 17, notices of reconsideration. Does any member of council wish to have any matter that was decided upon this evening reconsidered? Nothing noted. Item number 18, confirmation bylaw 18.1, bylaw 26-013, confirming proceedings moved by Counselor Ranger, seconded by Counselor Dykens.
It resolved that the following bylaw be read a first, second, and third time and numbered, passed, signed, and sealed. Bylaw number 2613 being a bylaw to confirm proceedings of council at its meeting held Wednesday, February 18th, 2026.
All in favor? Opposed? None noted. Item carried unanimous. Item 19, adjournment. I move for adjournment, seconded by Counselor Casey.